Well, welcome Pointer fans to another edition of Wisdom Wednesday. We've had such a great group of people on in the first 11 weeks. Last week, how cool was it to hear from Nick Bennett, Jason Kelso, two members of the NCAA National Championship teams, and to hear the inside scoop of their journey for 4 years that obviously culminated in winning another national championship. And today, we are very lucky. Coach Sheila Miech is with us all the way from Las Vegas. She's joining us here today. And, you know, Coach Miech is an icon at UW-Stevens Point, was our coach from 1987 to 2011. Think about this, you guys, 365 wins in only 117 losses, 31 ties, 74.2% of the time when the Pointers touched the field, we were going to win. Most in conference history. And at the time she retired, 12th all-time at all divisions in terms of number of wins, 14 WIAC regular season championships, 15 tournament titles, you know, and we're going to go on and on here. I don't know that we've had anything that will ever touch this. 70 straight conference matches, third all-time in NCAA history, any division, through a stretch that we won. Made the NCAA tournament 15 times, including the Final Four in 2000, a couple of Elite Eights, a Sweet 16 5 times, Coach of the Year in our league 9 times, Regional Coach of the Year 3 times. And now think about all these Hall of Fames. She's the WIC Women's Soccer All-Time Centennial Coach. 12 of the 24 players on that team she coached at UW-Stevens Point. Inducted into our Hall of Fame in 2014, was the first female inductee to the Wisconsin Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 12. In 17, she was inducted to the Wisconsin Soccer Hall of Fame. 2018 into the WIC Hall of Fame. If we have more Hall of Fames, Coach is going in. So she's in them all and she belongs in them all. We're happy to have her. Coach Sheila Miech, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Brad. Thank you for that nice introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm doing great. I'm living part-time out in Las Vegas right now, having a cool day today, only in the 80s, but I'm sure next week it'll be back in the hundreds. And I spend my time hiking just about every day, find a different mountain and go up there and try for the challenge. I do a lot of yoga. I do a lot of, what else do? I do body flow. I do Pilates. I do everything I can think of out here at the YMCAs, or I can get outside and really enjoy life.
Well, I'm tired already hearing about your workout regimen, Coach. Well, that leads us in. You talk about climbing the mountain. You certainly did that here at Stevens Point, and you were our first soccer coach, and to think about coming into a program that didn't have a program established to take it to what you did. Talk to us, Coach, about how did you get into coaching and what was your path to point, that got us here and, started to climb on such an incredible journey?
Well, it's a long history. I'll do the best I can and try to make it short for you. When I left the university, I actually graduated from UWSP. And when I left there, I journeyed on to Nacogdoches, Texas, and I started coaching there. I was actually coaching basketball and track and field at that high school. And then after there, I left and I went to Sussex Hamilton. I was there for 3 years. I coached gymnastics. I coached track and field, and then moved on to UW Whitewater, and I taught there for 3 years. I coached there for 3 years. My husband, John, the other half, was at Jefferson High School coaching football, and he was offered a job at UW-Stevens Point. And so I left my job at UW Whitewater, came to Stevens Point. Was very excited to come back to Stevens Point. It was kind of like a dream to come to Stevens Point again. Loved it here. And the first year, field hockey was just, they dropped field hockey in, I believe, 1986. Mm-hmm. So they were looking to add another sport. Don Amiot was the athletic director at that time and asked me if I would, be willing to start the soccer program at UWSP. I did play some club soccer, and I played a lot of field hockey, track and field, judo, had a lot of experience with different sports, which I really think helped me become a well-rounded coach. So he asked me if I would want to start the program, so I started the program in 1987. And when I started the program, there was no recruiting. We just sent out some newsletters, I believe. We didn't have social media back then, and just tried to get word of mouth, people to come out for soccer. And there were some students already on campus that had played club. So we had a small group of willing athletes. And I can remember, that first practice being very difficult. Some of them came out with like slipper tennis shoes. I mean, not ready to work out. And, you had all kinds of hodgepodge things going on. So it was fun. We went into the soccer field, looking for a soccer field, of course. And so we got the inside Coleman field, the track and field. And it was really not, the width, the length was not where it was supposed to be. But back in the day, they didn't really care. They were very, easy on the rules. Adaptations were okay back then. But so we played there. And I can remember, I have to tell you just a few stories, and so we played there for a couple years. Then we moved over to the intramural fields, just a few years. And then we moved over to where the soccer field is today, which some of my fondest memories when you talk about, coaching back in the day, where did we come from and where are we here, where are we now? I remember having to prepare for a game, and we had very little help back then. I mean, everybody helped, but it's not like it is today. So I remember going into the field house, pulling out the purple benches and bringing them outside so the players had something to sit on. There was no press box. I remember going over to PJ Jacobs because they were advertising that they wanted to do some building projects, the classes, the woods class. So I talked to the instructor there and I said, we really need a shed. So the little shed out there in the corner that was built by PJ Jacobs woods class, they provided, all of the structure. We just had to, I think we had to pay for the base. I think we had to pay for the cement base. That was the only thing we had to pay for. I remember, not having a score clock. We had to wheel something out there. I think we were keeping time. The officials were keeping time on the field. Now,
Well,
the day, and I remember our dean, Joan North, her husband, graciously donated warm-ups for our players. I remember not having a fence around the field, and you'd come to practice and there'd be, deer droppings all over the field. So you'd have to take your scooper out there, clean it up before practice or before tournaments. Because there were no fences, the balls would go all over. You'd easily lose a ball a week in the parking lot, because if somebody saw a ball going over into the parking lot, well, it was gone. So little things like that, it makes me chuckle. There were no stands where the field was. There was no bleachers. The players brought their lawn, the players' parents brought their lawn chairs out. And so looking back in the day and where we've come, it's unique. It was a challenge. It's laughable, but it's still, it's history. It's where have we come today? And I really enjoy those moments.
You led me right into the next question. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Yep. Hang in there. You're coming. Now I've got you. So
I've got you.
There we go. We're cutting in a little bit, but we'll get there. I think people are used to Zoom now, right? So this is okay.
It's okay.
Things work. You led me right into our next question. Women's soccer in many ways is the women's sport in the United States now. Basketballs and volleyballs and soccers are, you'd be hard pressed to not find somebody who didn't have the availability of soccer. But, when you started in 1987, it wasn't necessarily the case in women's soccer and a lot of women's athletics. Talk to us a little bit about the growth you've seen in that sport, in your lifetime and certainly in your coaching lifetime.
Yeah, in 1987, I think there were a group of women coaching just like me. We didn't have a lot of experience because there really wasn't any playing opportunities. You know, there was a lot of club, but not a lot of playing opportunities at the high school. So I never felt, oh my gosh, I'm intimidated. You know, I played field hockey, so I could learn the game. It was 11 people on the field, but there were a lot of us like that. In 1987, we didn't have a conference, women's conference. I'm going to talk about the WIAC. There was no WIAC conference, and it was a state championship. So when in 1987, my worst season, we won 3 games, and we go to a state championship. 1988, we went to a state championship. We played Marquette. We played Green Bay. There was no Division 1, 2, or 3 at these state championships. You just played, some pretty good teams. So the competition was amazing at Marquette. These club teams were some pretty good players. And in 1988, we won the state championship. And it was funny because I was looking at some of the media information, and it was saying, like, who do they think is going to win? And it would be like Marquette, Green Bay, Eau Claire. And then we were right at the bottom at the, 13 teams. Nobody ever thought we could do anything. So it was such a catalyst for the players to look at that and read it. And they didn't think we were very good. But, you could see then I think it was 1992, then we developed a conference here. And I think we hosted the first conference championship, and there were only 4 teams in our conference. And then gradually, I can't remember exactly, but it took 3 or 4 years before we actually had all 8 teams in the conference. So the development, the growth was starting. The athletic directors were seeing that soccer's a great sport to bring into our conference. It took some time, but we got there. I'm trying to think of some of the other things. I would think, I'll tell you some other things with growth. In 1992, when our conference began, we had a 19-2-0 record. I thought that was pretty good. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, we should be able to get to playoffs. We won the conference. We should be able to get a bid. Well, at that time in 92, they only took 18 teams. Maybe it was 16 to 18 teams in the country. Now, although there weren't as many soccer programs, still, it was impossible. You almost had to be perfect to get a bid. Well, what happened to us is we played McAllister first game. This was what the committee told me. You played McAllister your first team, which McAllister was like national champs back in there. They were like one of the best teams in the country. But you lost to them 4-0 in your first game. And I'm like, okay, so we lost 4-0. Well, you blew it. You can't have a bad game. So every year you'd have to start off the season with the team saying, if you have a bad game, you're not going to make it to playoffs. Doesn't matter if you win the conference championship. So, that was another catalyst, that got us going. Like, you can't, if you win 1-0 to a really good team, you might have a chance, but there's no guarantee. If you lost to a team that had a terrible record, you weren't going. And then the other thing that was very difficult for me was we always had to play in our region for like 6 or 7 years straight. And then Frank can remember this. Frank O'Brien always had to play UC San Diego first. Now, UC San Diego would always be the national champs because how many people go to their university? 5 times as many as Point? So, and soccer is huge out there. So, we'd have 1-0 games or 2-0 games. We get close to them, but we could never get past that. And the day that I saw the new regional alignment come out, 5-6 years later, I was like, oh, this is awesome. We can actually play teams. We can play first. We can go and play. We're still going to have to play a tough schedule, but they're teams that are going to be in Illinois or teams that are going to be in Minnesota. So those times, really made a difference when we could have some parity and get an opportunity to go. Now, you win your conference, you're in, and if you can get second place in your conference, you've got a good opportunity to go on. But I think back, some of those really good teams that we had, and those women that didn't get the opportunity to go on those trips to the regionals or, sectionals. They missed out, and I feel bad. It was just a game of inches, and you lose and you couldn't go. And want to ask me another question?
Sure do.
Okay.
You've you're so good at this because you just lead me right in, and I have them scripted. So you lead me right into the next question, even though you don't know you do. I've gotten to know you a little bit in the 4 years that I've been here, and your husband John, who are both important, and your children. And one thing that I always walk away from is, you're the most successful coach we've ever had at UW Stevens Point, but you never talk about those. You always talk about my players this and my relationship there, and the bus rides made us, and the silly things. And we knew we were good, and we knew we were going to win, and we were very, very serious about winning. 365 wins, all the relationships. Coach, what was some of your secret sauce? What made soccer just so successful for so long? The sustained success is just phenomenal.
Well, I think in the beginning, like I said, because of my background in coaching and being an all-around athlete myself, I had a lot of knowledge in different areas. And I think one of my strengths was track and field. I was a runner. I was a sprinter in college, and I did a lot of distance running. I ran a lot of 10Ks, half marathons. I knew how to train athletes. And that's where I got ahead. I don't think that the people that were just soccer knew how to train athletes. So what I did in the beginning, and my players hated me. I mean, I'd run the crap out of them. We ran, and we got in shape. And I knew how to train them hard. And I ran right with them. I ran until I was like in my 40s, until my back went out. I was doing sprints with them and running. And finally, I knew that wasn't the most important thing to do. But that was the key. The fitness was the key. We were not going to be tired on that field. And, 90 minutes in that game, you were going to go all out, and people couldn't do that. So that sounds kind of crazy because I think a lot of crazy stuff, things that I can't, probably get in a lot of trouble nowadays. I wouldn't call it hazing so much, but we did a lot of things, like with the other teams. Like I remember the hockey team, we were very close. The Paul Caulfield days, Joe Ball. A freshman over to have to take the balls back or something. I mean, I know that, but it was harmless fun, and it was really good fun. And I think some of those moments that we just had so much fun, and the traveling was great. We, changing topics here, but we traveled every year. I wanted to make sure, or every other year, we would go on a trip and play very tough competition. San Antonio, we always went to San Antonio about 6 times. Trinity was top in the country. And, if you didn't want to play the top players, the top teams in the country, you're not going to get better. So I would ask the team, do you want to play the McAllisters, who are national champs? Do you want to play UC Chicago, who's, first or second in the country? Do you want to play the Wheatons? And they always said, bring it on, challenge us. We might have lost, but it made us better. And by the time we got to our conference schedule, we were pretty good. But, we had some tough conference games. It wasn't always easy, and people say, you always win. Yeah, if you look at some of those games, it was 1-0, and sometimes we were behind. Many times we were behind, and for some reason it was like, I don't know, we just put it together, and those players wanted to win. And I think Dawn's doing a really good job with that right now, and I want to bring that on. I think she's really, doing that with her teams, really setting the bar high, and I, she communicates with me, and we share a lot of things, and I really appreciate that because she appreciates the history and really wants to bring that back. It's great to see.
Well, listening to your memories and obviously fitness. I mean, you talk about being down 1-0 and winning. Well, probably had something to do with the track workouts in the middle of August there when it was really, really hot, you know.
The players started to understand, you know, after the first 2 or 3 years that, yeah, fitness is important.
Well, winning is one thing. Sustaining it that long when you take everybody's best shot, I mean, it's amazing. And you know, you've hit on a lot of memories, Coach. What makes UW-Stevens, from your perspective, what makes UW-Stevens Point special? You know, not only the soccer program, but the institute, you know, the university, the region. Why Stevens Point?
Well, I was brought up I grew up in Wausau, and central Wisconsin is just the most beautiful place in the world. I mean, I'm out here in Vegas. It's got great things out here, but I do miss Wisconsin. I think and there's so many things I forgot when you said, how do you keep the success going? So I'm going to kind of, lean into this area too. But the people that come to Stevens Point, they know it's Division III. The players know. They know what they're not going to get paid. Always going to be fun, but I think the players are the type of people that like Stevens Point. I mean, you've got to enjoy what's here. We've got great programs, great professors.
Mm-hmm.
I leaned on professors over the years, the ones that were in the academic areas that could help you out. You sought out for those people, but they would spend hours with the players. And when they say that, you're in the classroom, I taught in the classroom. I taught 75% for many years. And the people that are in those classrooms are, people that really care about learning, at Stevens Point. And those professors are good here. They care about the students. You're not just a number. And I think they need to know that. I think back in the day why people come here, we had I think it's still the same, but we had just an incredible admissions office that, you'd go down there and the players could sit with the parents and they'd have a cup of coffee with them, and it's personal. It's just, you feel that personal feeling at Stevens Point. Another memory that, the chancellor at the time, Thomas George, I have to tell you this story, it's all kind of coming back now. I remember Thomas George. He was always on his bicycle, and he'd have his little shorts on, his little tank top, and he would stand behind your bench and he would talk to the players during the game. And one time, the first time, the players were in the huddle and they go, "Who's that crazy guy back there behind our bench?" And I go, "That's a chancellor." I'm like, "No way." But he was all O'Brien, I'm trying to think, Frank O'Brien, Don Amiat was here when I was hired. They make a big difference. Your colleagues down the hallway, I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I was looking for something to be creative on the soccer field, just to get the players motivated on the mental side, I'd bring in, other people to speak, other coaches to speak to my players. Because I think the thing is, you can't do it yourself. So there are a lot of great coaches. You walk down the hall, you see other coaches. They're going to help your athletes as well. They're going to help be creative. They're going to find other things that, your players might be interested in. Like I said, the admissions directors, the chancellors, the athletic directors, we always forget about the other people, like the athletic assistants that are helpful, the media, who are just phenomenal, helping out, the athletic staff, in the training room, all those people, they never get enough credit. And I think they're so helpful with the athletes. And I think if people come to Stevens Point, they're going to see that, that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to help each other. And that's important. I mean, you're only going to be as good as, what other people are going to do for you.
Mm-hmm. Coach, and I've ended a lot of these the same way. Our current student athletes are going through one of the strangest periods in American history. on a lot of levels. And, you know, COVID has brought us to our knees, and we're rebounding here shortly. And we have a lot of young people who aspire to be pointers. So we have some pointers who will listen and people who aspire to be pointers. You know, what do you say to the next generation? How do they, you know, what advice would you share to the current players and the future players here at Point?
Well, I would share that, you know, all the things I've just been talking about, that there's if, you know, you're struggling with something besides athletics, you know, your family life, it's there for you. Somebody will help you through it. There, you know, somebody will lend you an ear. Somebody will help you get through the tough times, because there are going to be tough times. And there's good times, there's bad times. But, you know, just learn a lot of lessons where, you know, come to college. I think to come to college and realize, you know, that the social aspect is very important, academics, athletics, and you've got to find the priorities. When you're a freshman, you're going to make tons of mistakes. And I laugh because I have a lot of those 50-year-olds and 40-year-old players that apologize sometimes for, you know, their behaviors. And I was talking to a player last week. She's in California, and she goes, "Oh, I'm really sorry for," you know, I'm like, "Hey, you know, I can't say her name. I'm saying, hey, you were 18 years old, 18 to 21. This is a time in life you're away from home, and you're going to have a lot of challenges and a lot of influences, and you're going to make tons and tons of mistakes, but learn by the mistakes." As a coach, when I first started coaching, how many times every single year I'd make mistakes, the next year I would clean up on those mistakes. And I'm still learning, you know, still climbing, or still hiking those mountains, you know, still learning every single day. And I think that's what life is about. You're learning. So yeah, the COVID's been tough, but there's a lot of positive things that have come out of this as well. I mean, I'm sure that all the coaches are relaxing a little bit. I mean, maybe nervous, but it's a really good time to relax and I always give people my, you know, my glass is always half full. It's not half empty. Well, no matter what diversity, you know, or challenges you have in life. And I think basically that's what that's all about. But, you know, I want to end, I want to thank my husband, John, because he, you know, he coached at Stevens Point for 25 years as well. And is the, you know, the winningest coach at Point in football, and the fourth leading winningest coach in the WIC. And he, you know, he really helped me through a lot of hard times. He was, you know, he calmed the storm many times. I think we worked well together. We were, you know, we just had a couple doors down from each other, you know, as we were working. And I think family's so cool. And, you know, my kids looked at UWSP, that was their playhouse, you know, back in the day. And it was fun because we had to spend a lot of time at the university. We couldn't recruit from home. You know, it was too much money. We had to recruit back, you know, back in our offices. And those were the great times. And I guess the message is like, look at how far we've come and how far we're going to go, and just be a part. What do they always say? Like, be a part of the solution, not the problem. Think about what you can give to your university and how you can be that catalyst.
You know, and we've had, I mean, and hopefully you can hear me here a little bit. We've had a couple of media challenges, but what a great message, Coach, to our younger people and to our current players, and hopefully several alums that will listen to this. And, you know, I always walk away from opportunities to speak with you and really can cherish our history and the things that we've done between you and John, your husband. You know, I often say Coach Miech, and there's two great ones, right? You know, we have two great ones. And What an honor to be serving at UW Stevens Point. So for our fans that listen to this weekly, we always finish, we leave the last words. One, I want to apologize. You know, we're living in a time of technology, and sometimes it works well and sometimes it cuts in and out a little bit, but the message was awesome. Thank you for that. We have 2 more episodes of this coming, but as is tradition, I leave the last couple of sentences for the guests. Coach, anything for Pointer Nation before we end this week's Wisdom Wednesday?
Oh, some great advice. Just stay healthy. Just keep yourself challenged. You know, I've been retired for 10 years. Challenge yourself every single day and keep climbing that mountain, you know, like we talked about in the beginning. Thanks to everybody. And, you know, the one last message, I didn't thank my assistant coaches, and they were amazing. You know, so I think about things as I'm talking that I really need. There's a lot of people I might have missed, but you know, thanks to everybody for giving me a great career at UW Stevens Point. Thanks to you, Brad, for giving me this opportunity to talk to people. And this is wonderful that we can do this all the way from Las Vegas.
Well, thank you, Coach. I know you're really busy, and I appreciate the half hour. To the rest of the Pointer Nation, we'll be back next Wednesday for the next episode of Wisdom Wednesday. Coach Miech, thanks for a great Wednesday.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.